Road. The specific horror of the road's apocalypse is that the film never tells you what caused it. There was something, an event, a disaster, an unnamed catastrophe, and now the sky is permanently gray. The vegetation is dead, the animals are gone, and the ash falls constantly. Everything is burning or has already burned. The food that was in supermarkets and houses at the moment of the event is the only food left on Earth, and it is running out. The man and the boy move south along a road toward a coast that may or may not be better than where they are. They eat from tins. They hide from other survivors. The people who are still alive have organized themselves, in some cases into groups that hunt other people for food. Being found is as dangerous as starvation. The specific quality of the road's apocalypse that makes it uniquely terrible is the timeline. The world is not in the process of ending. It has already ended. The plants are dead. The soil is dead. The sky produces no light worth having. There is nothing growing anywhere. The people still alive are burning through the last reserves of a world that stopped producing anything new the moment the event occurred. There is no recovery scenario. There is only the rate at which the last reserves deplete. The man and the boy are not surviving an apocalypse. They are living in its aftermath, which is quieter and considerably more hopeless. A quiet place. The creatures hunt by sound. They are fast, nearly indestructible by conventional means, and their hearing is so sensitive that a whisper in a still room is enough to draw them. They are everywhere. They arrived on meteors and have no natural predators on Earth. They have been on the planet long enough to have killed almost everyone. The surviving human population has organized itself around the singular imperative of making no sound. The Abbott family in the first film is the most detailed portrait of what life in this world actually looks like. Sand-covered floors, sign language as primary communication, no shoes, no loud materials, no glass that could break, no metal that could scrape. Every object in the house has been assessed for the noise it might make. The family communicates in whispers so quiet the film doesn't use subtitles for them. The baby in the story is not a plot device. It is the film's central argument about this world, which is that bringing a child into it requires you to figure out how to prevent a baby from making any sound at all while it is being born and in the first months of its life. You cannot explain to a baby why silence is survival. Part 2 confirms that functioning communities exist. The island in the lake where the creatures cannot swim is the clearest survival option the franchise has produced. But getting there requires navigating an overland route full of creatures and other survivors who are managing their own terror in ways that are not always compatible with your survival. The specific misery of a quiet place is not the danger. It is the texture of daily life, the sustained, unrelenting requirement to be quiet in every moment. The way any impulsive human reaction, pain, surprise, grief, becomes a potential death sentence. The way children have to learn that the natural loudness of childhood is something they cannot have. Interstellar. The apocalypse in Interstellar is slow and boring, and therefore more horrifying than anything that ends quickly. The blight, a bacterial plague that is killing Earth's crops one species at a time, doesn't arrive as a dramatic event. It arrives as a farmer's problem. Corn is dying. Okra is already gone. The army has been disbanded. The food supply is contracting. Dust storms roll across the Midwest with the specific quality of the Dust Bowl, but denser and more frequent. Cooper's family farms corn because it's the last viable crop. They eat corn. In a few years, there will be nothing left to eat. The government's response is to quietly stop pretending that long-term solutions exist on Earth and start planning to leave. The children growing up in this world are being taught in school that the Apollo missions were propaganda because the government has decided that inspiring ambition in children is counterproductive when there is no future for those ambitions to grow into. The specific horror of Interstellar's apocalypse is that it is occurring at the speed of agricultural failure, which is extremely slow. You don't die in a disaster. You die in a famine, which takes years, and in the meantime, you watch the world become smaller and grayer and more hopeless one failed harvest at a time. The dust gets into everything. Cooper's daughter Murph sleeps with a bandana over her face. The world is ending at the speed of soil erosion and crop failure, and there is nothing individual human beings can do about any of it. Mad Max. The world ran out of oil and water and everything that oil and water make possible. What followed was a period of wars over the remaining resources, nuclear exchange, and the specific kind of societal collapse that happens when the infrastructure of civilization, transport, food supply, medical care, communication, all fails simultaneously because all of it depended on oil. What survives in the Fury Road world is a collection of warlord fiefdoms. Immortan Joe controls the Citadel because he controls the water. The water comes up from an aquifer below his fortress. He releases it in controlled, inadequate quantities to the population below. Enough to maintain dependence, never enough to create independence. The people below scramble in the dust. The people above have everything. The specific misery of the Mad Max world is the scarcity engineering. Immortan Joe does not simply control the water because he found it first. He controls the water as a technology of power by making sure that the people below him always need him more than he needs them. The apocalypse in Fury Road is not the nuclear exchange or the oil wars. The apocalypse is what the people who survived those events built on top of the ruins. It is a world of deliberately manufactured shortage, and the deliberately manufactured shortage is the point. Without it, Immortan Joe has nothing. Bird Box. Something arrived. Nobody knows what it is. Nobody who has seen it is alive to describe it, because looking at it drives you immediately and irreversibly insane, and the specific form the insanity takes is that you become compelled to kill yourself in the nearest available way. People drive into walls, people walk into fires, people throw themselves through windows. The compulsion is instant and total, and there is no resistance to it. You see it, and then you are dead. The specific horror of the Bird Box world is that the threat is invisible and omnipresent, and the only defense is to not look at anything. Mallory spends 5 years raising 2 children, named boy and girl, because she cannot afford to name them, cannot afford that attachment, in a house with covered windows, training them to navigate with blindfolds. Every trip outside requires a blindfold. Every moment outdoors is a navigation by sound and touch through a world that contains something that will kill you if you accidentally open your eyes. The river journey that comprises the film's second act, Mallory and the children in a boat on rapids wearing blindfolds, navigating by sound while something moves through the trees alongside them, is the film's most precise expression of what daily life in this world costs. You are permanently, completely blind to everything around you, because the alternative to blindness is death. The people who survive long-term in the Bird Box world are the people who were already blind, a community of visually impaired survivors at the end of the film who have been living without the threat that sight represents. The apocalypse has made blindness an evolutionary advantage. That is the specific inversion the film is built around, and the one that stays with you after it ends. Children of men. In 2027, humanity has been infertile for 18 years. No children have been born anywhere on Earth since 2009. Nobody knows why. Nobody has found a solution. The youngest person alive is 18 years old and dead at the start of the film. The specific weight of the Children of Men apocalypse is not immediate. Nobody is dying of plague or starvation or monster attack. People are dying of despair. The knowledge that there will be no next generation has done something to the fabric of human society that is harder to describe than a disaster, but more total in its effect. Governments have become authoritarian because order is the only thing left to maintain. Britain has closed its borders and rounds up immigrants, fugees, into detention camps. The rest of the world has apparently done something similar or worse. There are no international communications. Nobody knows what is happening anywhere because infrastructure maintenance requires people who believe the future is worth maintaining infrastructure for. The film's world is physically intact. The buildings are still standing. The roads are still there. The infrastructure of civilization exists, but it exists with the specific quality of something being used up rather than maintained, burning through what was built without building anything new. Because why would you build anything new? There will be no one to use it. The horror of Children of Men is the specific horror of living in a world that has lost its belief in itself. That is more disturbing than almost any physical apocalypse because it is a mental state applied to an entire species. I Am Legend, already discussed in the zombie survival section, but the specific quality of Robert Neville's apocalypse deserves its own treatment here. The KV virus, and he engineered as a cancer cure, killed most of the human population and turned the survivors into dark seekers. New York City is empty except for Neville, deer grazing in Times Square, and the dark seekers who own the night. The apocalypse that Neville lives in is specifically one of absolute solitude. He has a dog. He has mannequins he has named and positioned around the city so he has faces to talk to. He has a daily routine so precise it functions as a psychological anchor. He broadcasts on AM radio every day at noon, and has been doing so for 3 years. He broadcasts because the alternative is accepting that there is nobody left to broadcast to. The specific horror of Neville's world is not the dark seekers, it is the silence. Manhattan, one of the densest, loudest, most relentlessly populated places on Earth, completely still. Neville runs through it every morning with his dog, and the running is not just exercise, it is the occupation of space. It is proof that the space is still occupied by someone who remembers what it was for. The film's most disturbing images are not the dark seekers. They are the empty streets and the deer, and the way absence at sufficient scale becomes its own kind of horror. War of the Worlds. The tripods have been buried in the ground for millions of years waiting for the moment of invasion. When the lightning strikes and they emerge, they begin harvesting human beings. Not killing for territory or resources in the conventional sense, harvesting. The red weed they plant across the landscape uses human blood as fertilizer. Spielberg's War of the Worlds is specifically a film about refugees. Ray Ferrier, Tom Cruise, and his children are not heroes mounting a resistance. They are people running in the specific way that civilians run from overwhelming military force. Without information, without resources, without any understanding of what is happening or why, with only the imperative to keep moving and stay ahead of whatever is behind them. The landscape they run through is full of other people running from the same thing. The ferry crossing sequence, thousands of people trying to get across water, the social order of refugee movement, the specific desperation of the crowd, is one of Spielberg's most carefully observed sequences. The apocalypse of War of the Worlds is total and fast. The tripods cannot be conventionally stopped. Their shields are impenetrable. The military response is completely ineffective. The only reason the invasion ends, bacteria killing the tripods, as in H.G. Wells' original, is a function of Earth's biology rather than human resistance. The humans contribute nothing to their own salvation. They simply survive long enough for the planet to save them, and the planet is saving itself rather than them specifically. That is the most specifically humiliating apocalypse on this list. Total helplessness, followed by salvation you didn't earn and couldn't have produced. Don't Look Up. A comet is on a direct collision course with Earth. Two astronomers discover this and attempt to tell people. The film that follows is a satire of institutional response to existential threat. The president's administration is primarily interested in the comet's political utility. The media is interested in the astronomers' personal lives rather than the comet, and the tech billionaire who eventually hijacks the response is interested in the comet's mineral content. The specific horror of Don't Look Up's apocalypse is that it doesn't need to happen. The comet can be deflected. The technology exists. The window to do so exists. The only obstacle is the specific combination of institutional inertia, political calculation, media distraction, and billionaire ego that prevents the deployment of an available solution in the available window. People die at the end of Don't Look Up, not because there was no way to stop the comet. They die because the humans in charge of the response prioritized everything except stopping the comet. Adam McKay made Don't Look Up as a climate change allegory, and the allegory is not subtle, but it works as a straight apocalypse film too. The comet is real, the extinction is real, the failure is real and specifically documented, and the ending is one of the most bleak and accurate representations of institutional failure that mainstream cinema has produced. The people who could have done something are on a spaceship heading to a new planet. Everyone else is at dinner when the comet hits. Dr. Mindy says, "We really did have everything, didn't we?"
We really did have everything, didn't we?
Then the comet hits. That's Don't Look Up. The mist. An experiment tears a hole in reality. Creatures from another dimension pour through. A mist descends on a main town and the creatures move through it, attracted to sound, various sizes, various levels of danger, completely beyond any existing framework for understanding or fighting them. The supermarket becomes a shelter. Mrs. Carmody begins preaching. People die and the deaths accelerate the specific kind of social disintegration that happens when a confined group faces something genuinely incomprehensible. The specific quality of the mist's apocalypse is the theological dimension. Mrs. Carmody's rise from the woman everyone thinks is annoying to the de facto spiritual authority of the shelter tracks exactly what happens to communities under sustained existential pressure without information. People need an explanation. If the explanation available is supernatural retribution, some people will accept it because having an explanation, even a terrible one, is better than having none. The Mist is the film on this list that most honestly depicts what human communities do to their internal structure when the external threat is too large to comprehend. The film's ending is the most sadistic on this list. David drives into the mist. He uses his 4 bullets on the 4 other survivors in the car. Mercy, he believes, before the creatures take them. The military arrives. The mist clears. He is the only survivor of the car, and the only thing he has to show for his mercy is the knowledge that he killed his son for nothing. The creatures were never the worst thing in the mist. They were just the reason the worst things got to happen. Annihilation. The Shimmer is an expanding zone of alien contamination, electromagnetic in origin appearing to have arrived via meteorite, that distorts the biology of everything inside it. DNA is refracted, combined, exchanged. Plants grow in human shapes. Animals carry human vocal cords. Humans begin to merge with their environment. Every previous expedition into the Shimmer has failed to return or has returned wrong. The team of 5 women who constitute the film's expedition goes in knowing this. The specific horror they find is not monsters, though there are monsters, but transformation. The Shimmer is not trying to destroy what enters it. It is trying to combine it with everything else. It takes the boundary between one organism and another and removes it on a cellular level across the entire zone. The world of Annihilation is one where a growing portion of the planet is being assimilated into something that has no interest in human categories of self and other, alive and dead, human and not. The lighthouse at the center of the Shimmer contains the origin point and the deepest transformation. Lena's encounter with what the Shimmer has done with what it found in the lighthouse is the most genuinely alien sequence in the film, and the one that most clearly communicates what living in this world ultimately means. The Shimmer is growing. It will not stop growing. Nobody understands why it is here or what it wants, and it may not want anything in a way that makes that question meaningful. Snowpiercer. The apocalypse in Snowpiercer was man-made. CW7 was a chemical agent deployed to address global warming by cooling the atmosphere. It worked too well. The Earth froze completely. Every living thing outside the Snowpiercer train died. The only surviving humans are on a train moving perpetually around the globe, on a track built before the freeze because stopping means dying. The train is a class system. The front cars are luxury and abundance, clean food, entertainment, space, natural light from carefully maintained windows. The tail cars are poverty and darkness, protein blocks made from insects, overcrowding, darkness, the specific violence that the train's authority uses to maintain order among people who have nothing to lose. The children in the tail section are periodically taken to the front of the train for reasons that are revealed to be genuinely horrifying. The specific misery of the Snowpiercer world is that it is a closed system with a fixed ideology. The train must keep moving. The population must be managed to the carrying capacity of the engine. The class hierarchy is not incidental to survival. The film's central revelation is that it is engineered as a feature of survival, that the deprivation of the tail section is a calculated population management strategy designed by the engineer who built the train. Wilford has been managing the population of the last humans on Earth through controlled scarcity and selective violence because the train's carrying capacity requires a specific number of deaths per year. The apocalypse froze the Earth. The train is what the survivors built to replace it. The train is worse. What do you guys think? Share your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like and subscribe. This helps me create more videos like this. Thanks. I'll see you on this next one.